Information asymmetry. When we survey people about their demand curve, we ask them how much they're willing to buy at every price. And then we construct a demand curve by totaling the amount that all consumers are willing to buy at each one of those prices. But when we survey people about their demand, we rely on an assumption that the buyer knows exactly what they're buying. In reality, it doesn't always work that way. Aspects of the item may be hidden by packaging. The buyer may not know the quality of the item until they start using it. Because of these and other factors, the seller knows exactly what the item is, but the buyer doesn't. These are examples of information asymmetry, or asymmetric information. One party in a transaction knows more than the other party about the nature of the good, its quality, or even its price. In this lecture, we're going to start with situations where the seller knows more than the buyer. Then in later lectures, we'll look at the specific situations where the buyer knows more than the seller. Okay, so situations where the seller knows more than the buyer. Let's start with the used car market. The seller knows whether the car is free of major defects or is a quote-unquote lemon. That is a car that was traded in quickly because it was always breaking down. But the buyer doesn't know these facts about the car. As a consequence, it can be hard to sell a used car because you have to convince the buyer that there's nothing wrong with your car. And another consequence is, you've probably heard this, that when you drive a new car off the lot, it immediately loses half its value. The reason for this is, if you try to resell that car after you've bought it, even buying it new, the fact that you want to resell it is an indication to the new buyers that it might be a lemon. They're worried that you know something about this car that they don't. Here's another example of how asymmetric information, where the seller knows more than the buyer, can be a problem in markets. When you go to the gas pump and buy gasoline, you put your nozzle in and you let it run, and it tells you you've bought 10 gallons. But how do you know it's accurately measuring the number of gallons pumped and isn't shortchanging you? After all, it's not like you're pouring it into a measuring cup and figuring that out for yourself. You're relying on the pump to tell you. The seller knows whether the pump is accurate, but you really don't. So, how do we deal with this particular type of asymmetric information? How do we keep it from destroying confidence in transactions and inhibiting the creation of markets? Basically, the market or a public regulator tries to even things up and keep the information from being asymmetric and keep both parties informed about what's going on. Okay, so public mechanisms that can remove information asymmetries. Well, in our gasoline example, next time you go to the gas pump, take a look and you'll see there's a little seal on the pump. That's a seal that a supervisor of weights and measures, probably working for the state or the District of Columbia, depending on where the gas station is. This supervisor has come and measured and made sure that the gasoline pump is accurately measuring out the amount of gas that it's charging you for. When it comes to quality, for some services like doctors and lawyers, we depend on their having licenses so that we know that the doctor or lawyer that we're hiring will give us high quality service. And finally, there are regulatory agencies that look specifically at products and tell us what the quality of those goods are. For example, the Food and Drug Administration protects us against harmful or ineffective medicines by demanding that manufacturers go through a rigorous approval process and that they check and make sure that that all the details of that process were run correctly. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, on the other hand, protects consumers against inaccurate claims. For example, there used to be you've probably heard of a brand of shoe about Skechers, but you may not remember that at one point they were promising that by wearing a very weirdly sold pair of shoes, you could actually tone your legs. That was a false claim, and the FTC told them to stop making it. Likewise, Beck's beer used to imply that it was made in Germany when it's actually made in the United States, and some people would pay a premium for German-made beer. The FTC told them to stop putting misleading information on their packaging, so now consumers have a better idea of what they're actually buying. So these types of public measures can be used to close those information asymmetries. But the private sector has also come up with some mechanisms for giving information about products and sellers to consumers. One way this happens is certain information sources have developed in the market. Carfax is a way of identifying used cars so that you can look up and get information about the history of that car. Likewise, your local Better Business Bureau collects complaints about businesses and firms and individuals so that you can go in there and see if anyone has filed a complaint against someone you're thinking of hiring. And there are also product rating agencies like the magazine Consumer Reports that test products and can tell you which ones are better than others. Another private mechanism for closing information asymmetries is feedback that's provided from previous customers. eBay has a system where every time someone buys from a seller, they leave them a rating. And you can look and see what kind of ratings the seller you're thinking of buying from has gotten over time. Amazon has a similar system for both the sellers and the products they're selling. And of course, we're all familiar with Yelp, where people leave reviews on various businesses, restaurants, stores, hair salons, whatever. Now, this kind of information can be a little bit noisy. And there's actually been cases, the FTC has in fact investigated cases, where some manufacturers selling on Amazon were paying people to leave positive feedback. So you have to take some of this information with a grain of salt. Still, it gives you a little more information than you might have had with no feedback system at all. A final way to close the information gap is through branding and the reputation of manufacturers and their products. One of the reasons why people buy brand name products is because they know that the manufacturer keeps in mind the fact that if they put out an inferior product, people will remember it. They'll destroy the reputation of their brand, and therefore they don't want to put out poor quality products. So when you're buying a brand name product, it may be better or it may not, but at least you know the manufacturer is worried about very low quality destroying their brand. And therefore you can be pretty sure that at least there's some protection against a low quality product. A final way that manufacturers can help you close the information gap is through something called signaling behavior. This is a way for manufacturers of high quality products to make it very clear to buyers that this is a high quality good. Basically, they structure the sales contract in a way that makes it clear that the good must be of high quality. For example, they give a very generous warranty or a money-back guarantee. There was a car that was sold a few years ago where they said that they would give a warranty that guaranteed the car for up to 100,000 miles of driving. Well, you know that if they're willing to guarantee to give you a warranty for 100,000 miles, they must be pretty sure that that car is not going to break down. So that's a signal they're giving you that they believe in the quality of their product. and that you should believe in it too, because they wouldn't give that kind of a guarantee if they didn't believe that they wouldn't have to pay out. So this signaling through guarantees, warranties, money back guarantees are a way that manufacturers can signal that their product is of high quality, and that you should buy it without worrying about information asymmetries. Finally, I want to talk about one particular market where there's a complete lack of price transparency, and strangely enough, it's healthcare. One of the strange things about the healthcare market is that hospitals can often charge different prices, often differing by thousands of dollars, for the same procedure with no difference in quality of care. One hospital may charge $4,000 to do surgery on your knee, and another might charge 15. And the problem is the patient has no way of finding out which hospital offers the procedure at a low cost and which offers it at a high cost. This can make a big difference for patient costs if they have any kind of copay that their insurer doesn't cover. And sometimes patients who go to emergency rooms can find themselves hit with massive surprise bills because of high cost in a hospital. In fact, there's a legislation that's being studied in Congress right now because of this problem of surprise bills. So strangely enough, the healthcare sector, one of the most important sectors in our market, is a market that suffers from substantial information asymmetry. But in general, all markets where the seller knows more than the buyer will leave the buyer at a disadvantage because the seller knows more about